Jack Nicklaus does not lose arguments in golf. The Golden Bear built half of what the PGA Tour even is, 18 majors, 73 tour titles, and a fingerprint on nearly every modern tradition the sport still leans on. So when an 86-year-old living legend stands up and warns that the tour is steering straight off a cliff, you would assume the new boss grabs a notebook and starts scribbling every word down. Instead, Brian Rolapp pulled off something almost nobody in this game has ever dared. He brushed the greatest winner who ever lived aside like a waiter clearing a plate. Rehearsed talking points, a corporate smile so practiced it could sell life insurance to a statue. That little boardroom pat on the head aimed at a man whose name is basically welded into golf's foundation. Now the legends are finished playing nice. What Rolapp actually said, how Jack fired straight back, and why this so-called quiet meeting could crack the entire PGA Tour wide open. Every layer of it gets peeled apart right here. Hit subscribe before we start, because this feud is only turning up the volume. Let me set the table for you first. Brian Rolapp is not a golf guy. 22 years he's spent climbing the NFL ladder, running television deals and media rights, sitting one chair away from Roger Goodell's throne. Then the PGA Tour handed him the keys as its first ever CEO, and come January, he officially takes over as commissioner from Jay Monahan. Here is a wrinkle nobody should sleep on. Monahan is heading out the door, which hands Rolapp nearly unchecked control just as the biggest structural gamble in modern golf goes live. No veteran commissioner rides shotgun anymore to soften the sharp edges, fewer guardrails, one outsider steering, and a legend loudly insisting the ship is pointed straight at the rocks. Timing, as they always say, is truly everything. Football built this man. Spreadsheets, ratings windows, and Sunday broadcast blocks are his native language, not the smell of cut grass at Augusta or the weight of a green jacket. From day one, he made his philosophy crystal clear: honor tradition, sure, but never feel chained to it. Translation for the rest of us: everything old is now up for demolition if the numbers say so. Enter his crown jewel, the 2028 overhaul. Picture the whole season getting crushed into roughly 6 months, split into 2 tiers most fans already call the 2-track system. Top guys race through a championship series, while everyone else scraps it out in a challenger series, more $20 million events, a simpler points chase, maybe even win-or-go-home match play to close out the year. Sounds slick on a glossy pitch deck. Dig into the fine print, and it gets spicier. Track 1 events would reportedly run limited fields of roughly 120 to 130 players, meaning the Challenger Series basically becomes the minor leagues of professional golf. Grind your entire life to reach the tour, then get told you are stuck in the undercard unless you climb a ladder designed by a guy who has never broken 80 on a Sunday that actually mattered. Careers hang on that structure. Livelihoods, mortgages, and entire families ride on where a player lands in Rolapp's shiny new pecking order. There is one enormous problem, though. Jack Nicklaus thinks the plan is a mistake, and the Golden Bear has never once been a man who whispers. You need to understand something about Nicklaus before we go further. This is not some retired champ who shows up, waves at the gallery, and mumbles a nice quote. Last year, he torched the tour's obsession with on-course interviews. For decades, he has begged the sport to rein in a golf ball flying so far it makes classic courses look like putt-putt. When he talks, the game listens, because he has earned every ounce of that authority the hard way. Silencing a voice like his is not just rude, it borders on insane. Muirfield Village, his own house, the course he carved out of Ohio dirt, hosting the 50th playing of his beloved Memorial Tournament. Standing at that podium before the event, Nicklaus got asked what he honestly thinks of the product Rolapp is selling. He opened with the golf equivalent of no comment. I don't want to comment on the tour's schedule because I'm not exactly in favor of what they're doing right now, he said. Then, being Jack, he commented anyway, 86 years old with, as one writer put it, zero patience left for pretending. The man simply unloaded his biggest gripe, cramming too many marquee tournaments right on top of each other. I hate to see tournaments bunched too much together with too many big tournaments too close together, Nicklaus warned, calling it a problem the tour will bitterly regret down the road. Burnout terrifies him. Back in his prime, he could grind 2 or 3 weeks straight. Then he needed real time to recharge the batteries. His words exactly. Human beings, shockingly, are not machines you can run around the clock. Watch what happens to the little guys, he basically pleaded. Nicklaus pointed straight at his own baby, the Cognizant Classic down at PGA National. Once a crown jewel wedged proudly between the Masters and the U.S. Open. Squeeze that event between Bay Hill, the Players, Pebble Beach, Los Angeles, and every other glittering signature stop. And what chance does it stand? None whatsoever. It quietly drowns in the noise. 50 years of history getting elbowed off the calendar to make room for more premium content. Here is a fresh example of the bloat, by the way. Rolapp's tour just dragged a brand new signature event back to Trump Doral in Miami, a course the circuit abandoned back in 2016. More big money stops, more crowding, more tournaments fighting for the same shrinking oxygen. You start to see exactly why the Golden Bear is sounding alarms. Anybody with sense expects a smart executive to hear the greatest golfer alive raising red flags and immediately lean in close. Rolapp went a completely different route. Publicly at the Players' Championship, he leaned on his favorite word, meritocracy. This is not a closed shop, he insisted, promising a shiny model where the best simply rise. The fans always know the top dogs, and performance inside the ropes decides absolutely everything. Polished, confident, rehearsed to the syllable, totally detached from the actual concern Nicklaus raised, which was never once about who deserves to tee it up. It was about a calendar quietly strangling itself. Behind closed doors, the two finally sat down at Muirfield. Reports described their meeting as cordial, which in corporate speak usually just means nobody flipped a table. Undoubtedly, there were some deeply uncomfortable stretches, though. Imagine the scene, a football executive barely 5 minutes into the sport, explaining to the Golden Bear why the game Jack basically co-authored needs a full rewrite. That right there is the silencing everyone keeps buzzing about. Nobody literally gagged Jack Nicklaus. Rolapp pulled something far slicker. He heard the man out, nodded warmly, thanked him for his passion, then kept right on marching toward 2028 exactly as planned. Listening, without ever hearing, smiling while ignoring. Golf's oldest trick dressed up in a crisp NFL blazer. Quick pause before we dig into the fallout. Should this breakdown be landing for you, do me one small favor and tap that like button right now. A single tap tells the algorithm to shove this clip in front of every golf fan arguing about the exact same thing. While you are at it, drop one word in the comments describing how Rolapp handled the Golden Bear. Just one word. Let it stack up. All right, right back into the chaos. The golf world caught the scent instantly. Analyst Dan Rappaport summed up the awkwardness perfectly on his show, pointing out how brutal it must feel for an outsider like Rolapp to sit across from a Mount Rushmore legend and basically inform him the tour he knew is gone forever. Diplomatic on the surface, Rappaport predicted, though the message underneath is blunt, tomorrow's PGA Tour will not resemble yesterday's, and Jack, at 86, is not chasing some 15-year growth window. He nailed the deeper dynamic, too. The Golden Bear no longer has a single reason to bite his tongue. Whatever he means, he says. Point blank, no filter. Writers piled on quickly. One veteran columnist framed the sit-down as cordial, with plenty of uncomfortable moments, which is a wonderfully polite way of admitting the temperature in that room could have chilled a beer. Fans, meanwhile, completely lost it. Comment sections everywhere lit up with the same gut reaction. Some suit from football does not get to shush the guy who designed half the mystique this sport sells every Sunday. Golden Bear loyalists came out swinging hard. Twitter turned into a legends versus numbers battlefield overnight. Funny enough, not every icon lines up on the same side. Tiger Woods actually cheered Rolapp's hiring, praising his respect for the game and calling it a win for players and fans. But think about that split for a second. Tiger is 49 and still eyeing his own future inside the machine, while Jack is 86 with 0 jobs to protect and 0 patience for spin. One legend plays nice with the boss. The other tells the boss the truth. Guess which one carries 50 years of receipts? Here is precisely where the legend's fight back storyline actually breathes. Nicklaus is not some cranky retiree yelling at passing clouds. 73 tour victories back his every syllable, plus a half-century of building the memorial into a genuine pillar of the calendar. His opinion still bends entire rooms. When a man of that stature plants a flag against the direction of the tour, the old guard tends to fall in line behind him. Because if the memorial and cognizant can get squeezed, then nobody's legacy event is safe anymore. Think about who else is quietly watching this play out. Gary Player, Tom Watson, Lee Trevino, the entire generation that turned golf into appointment television. All of them share Jack's DNA on what this sport is supposed to feel like at its core. None of them built towering legends chasing quarterly ratings targets. They built them across grueling seasons that rewarded stamina, fierce rivalry, and the slow burn of real history. Rolapp is not merely rewriting a schedule here, he is rewriting the very identity these men bled for. And icons, unlike sponsors, do not sign non-disclosure agreements or sweat renewal clauses. Once they decide to speak, they speak, and the whole golf universe leans in to listen. Zoom out with me, because this fight is way bigger than one crowded calendar. Two entire philosophies just collided head-on at full speed. Rolapp represents the football brain. Maximize eyeballs, stack premium products, treat every single week like a ratings war, and trust that bigger and shinier always wins. Nicklaus represents the soul side. Protect the breathing room. Respect the events that earned their place through decades of history. And remember that golfers are not linemen you can plug into a schedule and burn out by December. Both sides make a fair case, honestly. Compressing the season could sharpen the drama and force the stars to actually face each other more often, a legit gripe fans have screamed about for years. Yet the Golden Bear is dead right that jamming everything into 6 frantic months risks torching smaller tournaments and cooking the very players fans pay good money to watch. Even the tour's own guys admit they never want more than 3 events stacked in a row. Picture the human toll for a second. These players already drag exhausted bodies through majors, signature events, and a Ryder Cup grind that leaves stars running on fumes by autumn. Nicklaus lived that exact math without any of today's private jets or personal chefs, and he still swears you cannot fire on all cylinders week after week after week. Ignoring the one man who actually stacked 18 majors on the subject of pacing yourself takes a truly special brand of boardroom arrogance. Toss in that match play post-season idea, Rolapp keeps floating and the picture gets even messier. Win or go home drama sounds electric on paper. Ask yourself, though, whether cramming gimmicky formats into an already overstuffed 6-month sprint truly serves the game or just juices a television window. Here sits Rolapp's genuine nightmare. LIV Golf already ripped the sport clean in half. The schedule debate keeps boiling over, and now the single most respected voice in golf history is publicly waving a red flag at his signature plan. Dismiss Nicklaus too casually, and Rolapp hands every critic a rallying cry wrapped in a golden bow. Cave to him entirely, and the whole 2028 vision starts unraveling before it even launches. Quite the corner to paint yourself into. Money, of course, sits underneath every bit of it. Those $20 million signature events exist because Leave came sniffing around with Saudi cash, and the tour flat out panicked. Nicklaus watching his crown jewels get quietly devalued to prop up an arms race. That is the tradition versus cash war captured in one brutal snapshot. And every crack the old guard exposes hands live, another free recruiting poster. So where does all of this leave professional golf? Honestly, standing at a genuine fork in the road. A football executive armed with spreadsheets on one side, the Golden Bear armed with 50 years of hard-earned wisdom on the other, a 2028 blueprint dangling in the balance between the two of them. My gut says Rolapp badly underestimated exactly who he brushed aside. You can dodge a beat writer's question and survive. Waving off Jack Nicklaus, though, that echoes for years. Legends carry long memories, louder friends, and absolutely nothing left to lose. A genuinely dangerous combination for any suit betting the entire house on reinventing a sport he barely knows. Whether Rolapp finally wises up and truly listens, or bulldozes ahead and dares the old guard to try and stop him, that single answer will shape the next full decade of this game. One certainty already stands tall: the Golden Bear is not going quietly, no matter how warm the corporate smile aimed his way happens to be. Now, I want to hear your take. Drop a comment right this second. Is Jack Nicklaus the last honest voice protecting golf's soul, or a legend clinging to a past the sport has already outgrown? Tell me below, because I promise I read every single one. Smash that like button if the Golden Bear deserves way more respect than a lazy boardroom brush-off. Subscribe, ring the bell, and share this with one golf fan who needs to see just how ugly things are getting. Our next chapter is already brewing, and trust me on this, you will not want to miss a single second of it.